Dwight Gooden took the MLB world by storm, but it was heartbreaking to see him get caught up in serious trouble. When the truth about his substance abuse came out, not even his incredible success could save him from the downfall that followed.
Categories, including wins with 24, strikeouts with 268, and an ERA of 1.53. At one point, Dwight went 3 months and 14 straight wins without a loss, and became the youngest pitcher ever to win 20 games.
Gooden's career was one of incredible promise, immense talent, and sadly, personal struggles that followed him off the field. He became one of the most exciting pitchers in Major League Baseball, with a dazzling array of pitches that made him nearly untouchable on the mound. But behind the success, there was a darker story brewing, a story of addiction that would alter the course of his career and personal life. From the mid-1980s, as Gooden's star was shining bright, his battles with cocaine and alcohol began to take hold, creating a cycle of highs and lows that would define his life. Gooden's rise to stardom was nothing short of meteoric. He entered the MLB as a young phenom with the New York Mets in 1984, dominating batters with his overpowering fastball and devastating curveball. By 1985, Gooden had already won the Cy Young Award, a clear indication of his talent and potential. He was on top of the world, a dominant pitcher in the prime of his career. But as quickly as he had risen to the top, cracks were beginning to show. The first signs of trouble emerged in the mid-1980s, when Gooden's off-field behavior started to raise concerns. Despite his on-field brilliance, he was grappling with personal demons, particularly his struggles with cocaine. It was a period in which the pressures of fame, success, and a lack of personal discipline began to take their toll on him. One of the most significant incidents that highlighted Gooden's struggles came in December 1986. He was arrested in Tampa, Florida, after a confrontation with the police. The circumstances surrounding the arrest were alarming. Gooden was assaulted by police officers during the encounter, which would later spark a series of riots in the city. A report later cleared the police of any misconduct, but the incident had far-reaching consequences, contributing to the eruption of the 1987 Tampa riots. But this was only the beginning of the downward spiral. In the spring of 1987, Gooden's addiction became even more public. He tested positive for cocaine during spring training, a moment that would be a turning point in his career. He was at the height of his success, but his personal issues were starting to catch up with him. To avoid a suspension, Gooden entered a rehabilitation center on April 1st, 1987. It was a desperate attempt to regain control over his life and career. After spending time in rehab, he didn't make his first start of the season until June 5th, missing about a third of the 1987 season. Despite the time away, Gooden's talent still shone through. He won 15 games that season, showcasing his undeniable skill and ability to bounce back from adversity. But even with these moments of brilliance, the long-term effects of his addiction were becoming increasingly evident. His personal issues were no longer something hidden behind closed doors. They were spilling out onto the field and into the public eye. Gooden's struggles with addiction were not just affecting him personally, but they were also impacting his team, the Mets. His drug use and the enforced absences from the game had a ripple effect on the team, throwing off their chemistry and performance. In 1988, William Goldman and Mike Lupica wrote a book titled Wait Till Next Year, which profiled Gooden's impact on the Mets' 1987 season. The book explored how his drug use, combined with the time he missed due to rehabilitation, affected the team both on and off the field. It was clear that Gooden was no longer the same pitcher who had once been on top of the baseball world. He had lost the focus and discipline needed to maintain his place among the elite pitchers in the game. Unfortunately, Gooden's struggles didn't end there. His addiction continued to dominate his life, leading to multiple trips to rehabilitation centers and numerous legal issues. Gooden faced multiple arrests over the years, many of them related to his drug use and behavior while under the influence. One of the most notorious incidents occurred in December 1986, when Gooden was arrested alongside his nephew, Gary Sheffield, and former high school teammate, Vance Lovelace. The three were stopped by the police in Tampa after driving Gooden's Chevrolet Corvette. The situation escalated quickly, and Gooden was charged with resisting arrest with violence, battery on a police officer, and disorderly conduct. Gooden pleaded no contest in January 1987, which resulted in a sentence of 3 years probation and 160 hours of community service. In the years that followed, Gooden's troubles only deepened. In 2002, he was arrested again in Tampa for driving while intoxicated, possessing an open container of alcohol in his vehicle, and driving with a suspended license. This arrest was just another example of how Gooden's personal life was unraveling. But it didn't stop there. In January 2003, he was arrested again for driving with a suspended license.
The former baseball star has been charged with driving under the influence of drugs and leaving the scene of an accident.
One of the most tragic incidents came on March 12, 2005, when Gooden was arrested in Tampa for an altercation with his girlfriend. After she threw a telephone at his head, Gooden punched her in response. This violent episode led to his arrest and a misdemeanor battery charge. It was another moment that highlighted the depths of Gooden's struggles, both with addiction and with controlling his temper. Things took another turn for the worse in August 2005. Gooden was pulled over by police after driving erratically. He had been drinking, and when the police approached his vehicle, they noticed his eyes were glassy and bloodshot, his speech was slurred, and there was a strong odor of alcohol on his breath. Gooden tried to avoid the situation by driving away from the traffic stop, but the officer later described the disturbing condition in which he had encountered the former pitcher. 3 days after the incident, Gooden turned himself into the police, but his life seemed to be falling apart further. In 2006, Gooden's struggles with addiction and legal issues reached a breaking point. He was arrested for violating his probation after showing up to a scheduled meeting with his probation officer while high on cocaine. In a desperate bid to break the cycle of addiction, Gooden chose prison over continuing probation. It was a decision that may have been made in the hope that incarceration would separate him from the temptations of drugs and alcohol. Gooden was released from prison in November 2006 after serving nearly 7 months. He was not placed on further probation, but his future remained uncertain. He had been given a second chance, but it was clear that his addiction was far from over. His life would continue to be marked by cycles of recovery and relapse. In 2010, Gooden faced yet another setback when he was arrested in Franklin Lakes, New Jersey. He had been involved in a traffic accident, and when the police arrived, they found him under the influence of an undisclosed controlled substance. To make matters worse, there was a child passenger with him at the time of the accident. Gooden was charged with driving while intoxicated with a child passenger, leaving the scene of an accident and endangering the welfare of a child. It was a sobering reminder of just how far Gooden's life had fallen since his days as a baseball star. He later pleaded guilty to child endangerment and received 5 years of probation. He was also ordered to undergo outpatient drug treatment. His troubles keep mounting. As on June 7, 2019, Gooden was arrested in Homedale Township, New Jersey, following a routine traffic stop. He was driving too slowly and had illegally tinted windows, which led police to pull him over. However, what seemed like a minor traffic violation soon escalated when officers discovered 2 small baggies suspected of containing cocaine inside his vehicle. The discovery quickly turned a simple traffic stop into something much more serious, and Gooden was charged with several offenses. These charges included possession of a controlled substance, possession of drug paraphernalia, and driving under the influence. For Gooden, this arrest was yet another stark reminder of the destructive grip that addiction continued to have on his life. As the legal process unfolded, Gooden faced the consequences of his actions. In August 2019, he pleaded guilty to 1 charge of possessing cocaine. This was a significant moment in his life, marking yet another point where his addiction had led him to a legal crisis. In November 2020, he was sentenced to a year of probation, a reminder of the legal consequences that addiction can bring. The sentencing was perhaps a moment of reflection for Gooden, as it was clear that the past years of turmoil were taking a toll on him, not just personally, but also in terms of his relationship with the law and society. However, just weeks later, Gooden's troubles would take another turn. On July 22, 2019, he was arrested again, this time in Newark, New Jersey. This time, the charge was driving while intoxicated, a familiar legal issue for Gooden given his previous run-ins with the law. What made this arrest particularly troubling was that Gooden had been due in court the very next day to answer for his previous arrest in June for cocaine possession. The timing of this arrest made it clear that Gooden was still caught in a destructive cycle of substance abuse and poor decision-making, even as he faced legal consequences from his earlier mistakes. In both incidents, it was clear that Gooden's ongoing struggles with addiction were deeply impacting his life. Despite his previous arrests and efforts to turn his life around, he seemed unable to break free from the patterns of behavior that had followed him for so many years. It was a stark contrast to where his journey began, on the fields of Hillsborough High School, where he played alongside future baseball standout Vance Lovelace. Back then, in his high school years, the world wasn't watching his downfall. They were in awe of his immense talent. He was drafted in the first round of the 1982 MLB draft by the New York Mets, selected as the 5th overall pick. Gooden's raw potential was clear, and in just one season in the minors, he was already proving himself as a force to be reckoned with. Playing for the Lynchburg Mets in the Class A Carolina League, he dominated the competition, leading the league in wins, strikeouts, and ERA. His 300 strikeouts in 191 innings were a testament to his pitching prowess, catching the eye of AAA Tidewater Tides manager Davey Johnson, who would later become the Mets manager. Johnson was so impressed with Gooden's performance that he called him up to the major leagues for the Tides postseason. The leap from High A to Major League Baseball in a single year was a rare feat, but Gooden made it look easy. On April 7, 1984, at just 19 years old, he made his Major League debut with the Mets, forever altering the landscape of the sport. His arrival was met with immediate excitement, as his electrifying fastball, which touched 98 miles per hour, and his sweeping curveball soon became the stuff of legends. In that very first season, Gooden became an All-Star, making history as the youngest player ever to appear in an All-Star game on July 10, 1984. He took the mound in the 5th inning of the game and struck out the side, sending 3 American League batters back to the dugout with nothing but the sound of the ball popping into the catcher's mitt. His performance in the game was part of a combined record-breaking effort with fellow pitcher Fernando Valenzuela, who struck out 3 batters in the 4th inning. This game, on the 50th anniversary of the All-Star Game, was a moment for the history books. Gooden's 1984 season was a coming-out party. He won 17 games, setting a new Mets rookie record and solidifying his place in Mets lore. He also led the National League in strikeouts, breaking the rookie strikeout record with 276, surpassing Herb Score's record of 245 set in 1955. Gooden finished second in the Cy Young Award voting that season, despite having superior statistics in wins, strikeouts, innings pitched, and ERA compared to Rick Sutcliffe, the winner. But it was in 1985 that Gooden truly cemented his legacy as one of the greatest pitchers to ever play the game. His season was nothing short of legendary. He finished the year with a 24-4 record, leading all of Major League Baseball in wins, strikeouts, and ERA, the second lowest in the live ball era behind only Bob Gibson's 1.12 in 1968. Gooden's performance that season earned him the pitching Triple Crown, and his ERA plus of 229 was a historic achievement for a 20-year-old, surpassing even the legendary Dean Chance. His consistency was remarkable. After his first start of the season, his ERA never rose above 2.00. From August 31st to September 16th, Gooden pitched 31 consecutive scoreless innings over 4 games, and he followed that up with 49 consecutive scoreless innings over 7 games, a stretch that left baseball fans in awe. He also set an MLB record for most strikeouts per 9 innings for a rookie with 11.39, surpassing Sam McDowell's 10.71 set in 1965. Despite his dominance, Gooden's season wasn't without its challenges. The Mets, despite having one of the most feared pitchers in the game, finished second in the NL East, trailing the St. Louis Cardinals, led by the formidable pitching of future Hall of Famer, and also the 1985 Cy Young Award winner, Rick Sutcliffe. Gooden's teammates often joked that he had cost them the division title, referencing his 4 losses, which stood in stark contrast to his incredible individual success. However, the 1985 season would go down as one of the most dominant pitching performances in baseball history. Gooden, at the young age of 20, became the youngest ever recipient of the Cy Young Award, a feat that seemed almost impossible for anyone to replicate. That year, Gooden was plastered across New York City. His face adorned billboards and murals, with one famous piece being a 102-foot-tall painting in Times Square, showcasing him mid-pitch. The mural was so iconic that it became part of the New York landscape, drawing attention from baseball fans and passersby alike. Gooden continued to lead the Mets through the 1986 season, although his strikeouts began to dwindle. That year, Gooden finished with a respectable 17-6 record, but his strikeouts dropped significantly. Nonetheless, he was still considered the Mets' ace going into the postseason. Gooden's 1986 postseason started off with promise, though his performances weren't as dominant as his regular season. In the National League Championship Series, he pitched a brilliant game in the opener, only to lose a 1-0 duel to Houston's Mike Scott. In Game 5 of the NLCS, Gooden was again impressive, throwing 10 innings of one-run ball, but the Mets went on to win the series without him securing the victory. The 1986 World Series, however, would prove to be a disappointing chapter for Gooden. Despite the Mets going on to win the championship, Gooden struggled in his two starts, failing to go beyond the fifth inning in both. His inability to perform in the postseason became a recurring theme in his career, and while he earned a World Series ring, it wasn't the crowning achievement that many had anticipated for him after such a dominant regular season. Behind the scenes, Gooden's struggles were growing more apparent. He began to suffer from substance abuse issues, something that would later take a toll on his career. In 1986, Gooden famously skipped the Mets' victory parade after their World Series win, a moment he later attributed to being under the influence of drugs. His off-field issues, including substance abuse, would continue to plague him throughout his career, despite his undeniable talent. Gooden's struggles were reflected in his declining performance in the late 1980s. In 1988, Gooden finished with an 18-9 record, but his decline had begun. His fastball, once an untouchable weapon, began to lose its bite, and by the end of the 1988 season, it was clear that he wasn't the same pitcher who had burst onto the scene just a few years earlier. In the 1988 NLCS, Gooden faced off against Orel Hershiser, who had just set a remarkable 59-inning scoreless streak. Gooden pitched admirably in Game 1, but the Mets were eliminated from the postseason by the Los Angeles Dodgers in a series that was defined by Gooden's inability to rise to the occasion. Injuries also started to take their toll on Gooden as he entered the 1990s. Shoulder problems limited him to just 17 starts in 1989, and his performance began to decline further. In 1990, however, Gooden bounced back, posting a solid 19-7 record with 223 strikeouts. But by 1991, his career began its sharp decline as a combination of injuries and off-field issues led to inconsistent performances. As Gooden's personal life became more turbulent, his career continued to spiral. In 1994, during the strike-shortened season, Gooden's struggles reached a new low when he tested positive for cocaine use and was subsequently suspended for 60 days. Even during his suspension, Gooden tested positive again, leading to an entire season-long ban in 1995. This was a low point in his career, and his personal life became a public spectacle. He was arrested multiple times and at one point was found with a loaded gun, contemplating suicide, before his wife intervened. Although his earlier dominance was overshadowed by his failures, and the public, once enamored with his talent, turned their backs on him. Yet in 1996, Gooden made a surprising comeback. He signed with the New York Yankees and found himself a key piece of their pitching staff. Though he wasn't the same pitcher he had been in the mid-80s, Gooden showed flashes of his former brilliance, including a no-hitter against the Seattle Mariners in May of 1996. That no-hitter was a symbol of Gooden's undying talent, a glimpse into the greatness that once was. After his time with the Yankees, Gooden moved on to the Cleveland Indians in 1998. It was there that he had a solid, though not extraordinary season. He finished with an 8-6 record and a 3.76 ERA, a respectable performance that showcased flashes of the brilliance he once displayed. But it wasn't the same dominant force that baseball fans had witnessed in his youth. Gooden made 2 appearances in the postseason that year, facing off against his former team, the New York Yankees, and the Boston Red Sox. In his first postseason start for Cleveland, Gooden got a no decision in a tense battle with the Red Sox, where he pitched decently. However, when he faced the Yankees, the team he had once been a standout ace for, he couldn't get the result he hoped for and was handed the loss. The following year, 1999, was a bit of a letdown. Gooden couldn't quite find the magic he had in 1998, finishing with a 3-4 record and an elevated ERA of 6.26. It wasn't the kind of performance that was expected from a once elite pitcher, but such struggles were becoming a part of his later career. In the same year, Gooden released his autobiography, Heat, where he opened up about the personal demons that had often overshadowed his remarkable career. In the book, he revealed the extent of his battles with alcohol and cocaine abuse, shedding light on the pressures and the toll that fame and his inner struggles had taken on him. The year 2000 marked another phase in Gooden's baseball journey, this time with the Houston Astros and Tampa Bay Devil Rays. Unfortunately, the season was a continuation of his difficulties, and neither stint with the two teams went as planned. However, Gooden wasn't done just yet. Midway through the season, he signed with the New York Yankees, the team he had once faced as a rival, but now found himself playing for. It was with the Yankees that Gooden found a semblance of his former self. He turned in a respectable 4.2 record with a 3.36 ERA, often serving as a spot starter and long reliever. He even had a special moment during the regular season when he won a game against his former Mets team during the Subway Series on July 8th, further adding a layer of nostalgia to his career. Although his time with the Yankees wasn't as storied as his early years with the Mets, it was a redemption of sorts for Gooden, a way for him to show he still had something left in the tank. Despite his resurgence in the regular season, Gooden's postseason experience remained a point of frustration. He made appearances in both the American League Division Series and the American League Championship Series, but was unable to secure a win in any of his outings. The 2000 World Series, which pitted the Yankees against the Mets, saw Gooden excluded from pitching duties despite the Yankees' strong run to the championship. Even though the Yankees won the series, Gooden, unfortunately, wasn't able to contribute on the mound. The 2000 season would end up being the third World Series ring of his career, though one he hadn't earned through pitching in the postseason. It was a bittersweet end for Gooden, who had tasted success in his youth, but now faced a career that hadn't lived up to the high expectations set earlier in his life. Over the course of 9 postseason appearances in his career, Gooden posted in 0-4 record, a statistic that undoubtedly weighed on him. In terms of his hitting, Gooden wasn't just a pitcher, he also showed some skill with the bat. As a pitcher, he posted a career batting average of .196, which isn't much to write home about, but was still above average for his position. He also managed to hit 8 home runs during his career, showing that he wasn't just a one-dimensional player. Additionally, he was solid in the field, recording a .950 fielding percentage, just shy of the league average for pitchers, but again a sign that he was more well-rounded than many of his peers. Gooden's final season came in 2001 after he was released by the Yankees during spring training. His career ended with a respectable 194-112 record. The truly remarkable aspect of his career was how much of his success came before the age of 25. The peak of Gooden's career, particularly his dominance during the mid-1980s, left a lasting impression on the baseball world. Gooden's addiction clearly held him back from reaching the heights his talent could have taken him. A lot of people wondered just how many more wins he could have had, or if he would have gotten more Hall of Fame consideration if it weren't for his struggles. Although Gooden had some moments where he bounced back and showed flashes of his old self, his overall consistency was never the same. His career ended up being a mix of incredible talent and missed potential, which makes his story not just one of greatness, but also a warning about the impact addiction can have. Gooden's legacy is a powerful reminder of both his extraordinary skills and the challenges he faced off the field. That wraps up today's video. Don't forget to like and subscribe,